Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. It is your boy HMK here once again, and I want to welcome you back into the fifth dimension. We've got a lot to talk about when it comes to the known and the unknown, because we are diving into the summer of games. Even though E3 is nowhere to be seen because E3 is not happening this year, we've had a lot of stuff being covered by many game developers, both old and new, both good and bad. But when it comes to this channel, and of course, the most hypest of hypes, we have to think about Nintendo and what they could have in store for this year and the next. And of course, The Legend of Zelda, specifically Breath of the Wild 2. Now, I don't know about you, but personally, even though it's better than saying Zelda Wii U over and over again, I'm kind of tired of this name, and I'm gonna need this name, Nintendo. There's been a lot of rumors and leaks about the possibility of a Nintendo Direct happening next week, possibly that of Tuesday, because we do have the Capcom show that's happening on Monday. We have the Xbox Bethesda show, which is happening on Sunday. And we have the 25th anniversary celebration, 10 minutes long, of Final Fantasy VII that was announced today, slated for Thursday. And of course, we've seen the State of Play, we've seen the Sonic Central, we've seen Summer's Game Fest, and more. And there's a lot of good things we saw and a lot of bad things. But I'm hoping that once again, just like last year, Nintendo may swoop in and save the day with their trademark hype. Now, there's a lot of things going forward when it comes to Nintendo and the possibility of a Nintendo Direct. Of course, we have to talk about how Mario Strikers Battle League came out today. If you guys are playing the game, I will be streaming that very soon. I hope you guys are enjoying it because, man, oh man, it's quite the throttling ride. All right, so I hope you guys will join the fifth dimension when it comes to my Battle League. We have Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which is literally coming out, I think, in 49 days. And I know that you guys should be hyped for it. I'm hyped for it. Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, Torna, all playable on the Switch. I know you guys want Xenoblade Chronicles X be playable, but I mean, like, 1 and 2, which will set up Xenoblade Chronicles 3 by converging their futures, are available on the Switch. And if you haven't played those games and you want to get to Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I recommend you start now. Take like 3-hour naps. Don't go to sleep. It's all about Shulk. It's all about Rex. It's all about Nia. It's all about Pyre, Mitra. It's all about Melia. It's all about Fiora. It's all about Rhine. It's all about Dunban over there. But Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is looking really, really hype. And then in September, we got Splatoon 3, which, it's time to squid up. Are you going to be a squid kid or an octoling? An octo kid, an octo. They should really make like a tagline for like their squid kid that rhymes was like octo, bocto. I don't know, but I'm really excited for that game as well in order to get back to the competitive scene of Splatoon. And it's weird because you don't really understand how fun Splatfests are until they're gone. And I miss Splatfest so much. That's why I'm like, I'm ready for Splatfest to start up in September. Yo, can I get a hell yeah? Am I the only one who thinks that? Yo, Splatfest was wild. Breath of the Wild, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So, like, let me round out the year with Bayonetta 3. It's supposed to come out this year. We don't know when, but Bayonetta 3 is going down. And I'm thinking it's going to be an October release. All right? That's what we do know. And, of course, Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. If you guys have not tried a demo for that, I'm telling you, I'm about to beat the demo. And I'm like, please don't go. Baby, please don't go. Shit's fun. That game is hella fun. Surprisingly fun. And I'm telling you, like, Quiet Tecmo, they really shine with their Warriors games when they're not doing Dynasty Warriors, Warriors Orochi, or Samurai Warriors. Just do third-party offshoots, all right? Persona 5 Strikers, Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, and Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes is primed and ready to be like my favorite Warriors games. It's insane. It's insane in the membrane. Do we have a brain? And then, of course, going into 2023, we have The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 slated for spring. And I really hope, listen, I'm liking the fact that we now have like kind of a precise, concise release window now instead of just like 2022 or God knows when or whatever, you know, first, like when the first trailer came out, oh, it's in development. Hooray, insert confetti sound effect here, or whatever. And then the second trailer, Breath of the Wild 2 at E3 2021, we got 2022. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then it got delayed, understandably, because I mean, it's not going to be a Zelda game unless it has a delay, right? Right? I was there. I was there all the way from the Ocarina of Time days. Do you remember when Ocarina of Time was supposed to be Zelda 64? Because I do. Anyways, Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be slated for spring 2023, which, you know, is kind of poetic because that's when Breath of the Wild 1 came out back in 2017. And I'm really looking forward to the game. But every year, Zelda fans already know, every year we're supposed to get some sort of Zelda release, right? So where's the release for 2022? That really gives us the big begging question if we're going to see Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD revitalized, revived, and replaced, re-emergent, re-released on the Nintendo Switch. And a lot of people are saying, I mean, like, do we really need re-released again? Yes! Yes, and I'll buy it. But I'll tell you this right now. I am going to buy it regardless, but if Nintendo does like a whole separate, both games, $60 thing shit again, I'm going to be like, what choice do I have? What choice do I have? Right? Because I really like those games. And a lot of people are like, but what's going to be the big difference between that of like them releasing on the Wii U and them releasing on the Switch? Well, I mean, come on. For some, you know, like for those who know the Switch is stronger than the Wii U, can you imagine? I mean, if you played SEMO, then you already know. But can you imagine Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD both running at 60 sexy frames a second? I'm telling you, that's the perspective, right? But when it comes to the unknown of Nintendo in 2023 and then Zelda into 2023, obviously we got Breath of the Wild 2. There's other games we have to really think about what could be made. Next level games really show off their hand with Mario Strikers Battle League. And of course, if a Nintendo Direct is going to be shown off, it's going to have to be showing off a lot of new stuff for the end of the year going into 2023. I mean, the end of the year, we really kind of like got an idea with Pokemon releasing in November, and then possibly Bayonetta releasing in October, or anything like that. Maybe we'll get the Zelda releases in October or anything, but we don't have a December release. We don't really have an identity beyond that of 2023. And then E3 this time around is when Nintendo would really show off that identity. And I want to know what that identity is. Like, come on, what could it be now? There's a lot of ideas and perspectives when it comes to like Nintendo's like weirdly wicked unknown games. One that a lot of people are talking about is the possibility of Mario Odyssey 2, or at least they have a new Super Mario game. You know, like leaning towards either side. What do you think? Do you want to get another Odyssey game? I'm surprised that Odyssey never got DLC. And before y'all say Luigi's Balloon Rush, I'm like, no, that's not no. We could have had Isle Delfino since you love Sunshine so much. But I mean, a Mario Odyssey 2 would be really, really cool. But then a lot of people really like how they handled Bowser's Fury. You know, I would like to see them flesh out like a big ass, you know, amazing version of Bowser's Fury, like a bigger version, like more fleshed out, more moves, maybe even combining aspects. Because I mean, Bowser's Fury did have some flavors from Odyssey, right? So combining more aspects from Odyssey and Bowser's Fury would make for a good next Mario game, in my opinion. And then we come to the big unknown game. Is it going to happen or not? I will take yes for 300. And that is Metroid Prime 4. I would love for Metroid Prime 4 to release next year. Because, I mean, next year, 2023, really looks like it's going to be, you know, a bloodbath for Game of the Year. We got Final Fantasy 16. We got Breath of the Wild 2. We got a bunch of games. Starfield, that we know have been pushed back into 2023. So there's a lot of games looking very nice, very spicy. Yo, Marvel Spider-Man 2. Come on now. and then just add Metroid Prime 4 to the mix, and then possibly that if we get a direct next week, maybe they'll finally confirm the long awaited, the long speculated, the long rumored Metroid Prime trilogy for the Switch. That would be spicy. Once again, nice optimized 1080p 60 frames per second on the go, on the screen. It'll be all good, But I know what you guys are here for. I know what you guys are excited for. I know that you guys want Breath of the Wild 2. I want a name. I want a release date. I want Nintendo to really, truly unveil the curtain. Because so much so, we've been theorizing, we've been talking about this game for like now 3 years. There is so much going into the bag of Breath of the Wild 2. All we know is that it's truly a sequel to Breath of the Wild. Same world, same, Land of Hyrule. We'll be visiting the sky, new gameplay options, and that Link is going to get a new arm, some new duds, and the Master Sword definitely seen better days. But aside from the fact that Zelda cut her hair, now she's missing again, and that Ganondorf is back. Oh yeah, the good old dwarf. We don't really know next to none about the game. And then Nintendo, along with Bill Trinan, says that the reason why we don't have a subtitle is because it's a spoiler. Well, I feel that it's time to finally start spoiling the game. Well, I mean, spoil it. Don't spoil it like to hell and back. I'm talking about, spoiling in the sense of, yo, let us know something. Tell me. I want to know what's this game about, Breath of the Wild 2 obviously sees the return of Ganondorf, but I know there's going to be more to that. I know there's going to be like, the Triforce probably going to hang in the balance. Why is everyone trying to go to the sky? What's in the sky? Are we going to talk about the old gods once again? I'm tired of talking Hylia this, Hylia that. I mean, ever since Skyward Sword, it's all about Hylia. I want to learn more about the possibility of the origins of the Earth, along with Din, Faeor, and Nehru. I want to, there's a lot of people theorizing on the concept of time travel. How wild would it be? How Breath of the Wild would it be if we went into Breath of the Wild 2 and we actually go and see the construction of the Earth? Go see how Din, Faeor, Nehru put the Earth together, gave the spirit of law, and created all life forms that would uphold that law. That's the creation of the Earth. And of course, when the three gods with their labors completed and they went to go rest and head up for their realm, at the point of departure, at the point of descension, that's where the Triforce was created and was left behind. I would love it if Breath of the Wild 2 actually fleshed that out, because I feel that's a story that is literally as old as The Legend of Zelda itself, which it's finally time to possibly see that in motion. I want to see that. And I feel that would be a good thing to cover up for possible spoilers. The origin of the gods origin of the world, like The Legend of Zelda, origin of the world, origin of Hyrule, origin of the Triforce's beginning, The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Beginning, something like that, Because I really get the big, strong vibes that one of the areas that we see Link running around with the golden sky and everything looking so majestic, I want to assume that that's very, sacred realmy. But at the same time, I've seen no one really talk about this, that specific realm that looks like it's dripping in gold, dripping in the warm light of the golden sheen of the Triforce. I feel that might go in line with, the tapestry that we've seen in the beginning of Skyward Sword, where it shows Hylia going against Demise and fighting against his hordes of demons, along with everyone who isn't human. I mean, Sheikah's Sheikah's a human, but she banded together with the Kyuquis, with the Gorons, etc., etc. And that area gave me vibes of how she cut a sliver of land and said skyward in order to fight the battle. She sent the humans and the Triforce skyward. So possibly that. I would love to see Breath of the Wild 2 either elaborate that a little bit, or maybe even show us, the creation of the world. Because if we look back at the very first, I would say visual aid on how, the world was created, We have to look back at the goddess of power, Din. With her strong flame on arms, she cultivated the red earth. And of course, they shows like, parts and scenes from, different areas within that of Ocarina of Time. When it came to Din, it showed off the Gerudo area, leading into the Gerudo area. When it showed off Nehru pouring her wisdom into the world in order to give it the spirit of law, it was Death Mountain. And of course, when Faecarly created all life forms, we saw it was, Kokiri Forest. It was just, like a good way to show everything. But, I just get a big vibe of when Din was creating the world, you see like all these rocks and boulders. And I feel that within the chaos that is Hyrule, we see Din send out a flame. And that flame exploded and was recompounded into the world. And if you guys, paid attention to school, that's kind of like how the moon was made. Like, like the earth was like, primordial rock. If I'm paraphrasing here, right? I ain't no science major, but I'm paraphrasing here. It's like, the earth was literally, molten rock. It was very primordial. It was forming, and then here comes a meteor, and then bam, just like broke off a piece, like chunks of the earth itself. And then those chunks got caught up into the orbit of Earth, and then those chunks eventually kept spinning and kept getting compounded into the moon, right? So it kind of looked like that. What I feel that's what they were going for in Ocarina of Time for visual aid and stuff. Case in point, the thing I'm trying to, get down and dirty into is that the reason why there are sky isles, the reason why there's like these islands in the sky, point A, point B, like little chunks, if you will, is that possibly this area that Link is in the sky could be visual aid to represent Hyrule coming together at a point in time where Hyrule is being built by Din herself. It's not like, in biblical lore that, oh yeah, God created the earth. Like he did all these labors within a week, and on the seventh day, Sunday or Saturday, depending on your fast of Christianity, he rested, right? So there wasn't really like a time frame. Like, okay, Din took this day to create that, this day. Like a lot of people assume that Din just like, bam, all right, Hyrule's done in like a second, or like the chaos that was Hyrule. Like, did time really exist? Because Majora's Mask is a goddess of time, which a lot of people think is might represent Nehru or Hylia or yada yada yada. The thing I'm trying to say is that could have been over time. Like, Din was like, compounding land from like different parts of, the nothingness, and then putting together Hyrule or the earth little by little, right? And then that goes in line with the theory that, the sky represents the past, and then the land represents the future or the present, right? The past's future, but our present, right? And if you were to ever like cross a line between basically its own, like it's atmosphere, but not really. If you were to cross a line from the islands back to the land, and you go back to the present, and the sky islands will disappear, and you can't see them because you're in the present, because they don't exist. So I'm thinking that those islands could literally be chunks and pieces of Hyrule that Din was putting together at that point in time, in the drastic past, in the past before past, in the past before that of Skyward Sword, which would also make sense of how we see mechanical beings in, the sky, because that was before true life was created. Din had to create the earth first, and then Nehru had to pour the spirit of law into the world, and then Faecarly created the life forms that would uphold that law, right? So these things could be there as like the precursor, the precursor inhabitants of Hyrule in construction, and then they could like literally be, envoys of, I assume it's Faecarly, because they seem like, green energy, envoys of Faecarly, to possibly test that of how life could possibly interact with Din's creation, right? And because like, it's a robot, it's not really real, it doesn't have a soul, so it's not real life, it's not organic, it's not like, biological. So that can go into the idea of, the world being constructed at that point in time, and then Link being there and seeing all that in motion. And then there could also be the possibility of, select individuals, I want to say, that could visit that past, or are allowed by the gods to visit that past. Anyways, like the long wind of it is that I really want to see like some sort of interactable presence of the golden goddesses, of the old gods, either before or after constructing the world and seeing the Triforce's origin in real time. And it's just that like a lot of clues from both trailers kind of give me that feeling, right? Especially when we consider that we see Link with the broken Master Sword in that one snippet that IGN Noma showed us when the game got delayed. I'm not mad, I ain't sad, I was expecting it. The little snippet where it shows Link, with the broken Master Sword activating with, Fi possibly talking to him. He's like in front of a golden power of, something that we see, activating, or possibly like, telling Fi, like, hey, listen, this is something. Could that be possibly, the essence of dissension of a god? Or could that be a piece of the Triforce? Or could that be like the true origin of what the Triforce is? Because all we know what the Triforce is the essence of the god. It grants near omnipotence, near omniscience, and that it was left behind by the goddesses themselves. And gods cannot touch it, and they're relics. Okay, but that doesn't tell me anything. Did you make it? No. Did you always have it? No. I don't know. We don't know. I would love to see like the origin of the Triforce possibly, and giving us more context to, the limits, the possibilities, and what this thing could truly do, and what this thing could truly mean. And the fact is, we know that the Triforce is literally tied to the providence of Hyrule. As case in point, it was stated in Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess, and shown off in A Link Between Worlds, with Lorule. By destroying the Triforce, the land will decay. And, I would love to see like the decision of that, the decision to not allow it to be used by gods. And like, what's the point? Is the old god's power so great that, warden deities such as Hylianhikkikomori, don't hold a candle to the old gods? I would love to see like those limits, and I love to see those possibilities in Breath of the Wild 2. Because when we compare it to Breath of the Wild 1, we got a good understanding of the world itself. Yet when we compare it to all the facts and all the lore from what we had with the Zelda timeline, with the games beforehand, including that of the child timeline, the adult timeline, the downfall timeline, Ocarina of Time, Timeline Split, Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, Four Swords Adventures, Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks, and then A Link to the Past, A Link to Between Worlds. There's a lot of games in downfall timeline, right? Zelda 1, Zelda 2, yada yada yada. It's just that we don't really know. And I would love to know, because like, what's the story gonna be in Breath of the Wild 2 that already isn't in Breath of the Wild? All right, the Triforce, the old gods, Ganondorf, Demise, Fi, the Master Sword. If you're gonna have the Master Sword be broken, then we're obviously gonna have to talk about its limits. If we're gonna talk about its limits, we're obviously gonna have to talk about its origins. If we're gonna talk about its origins, let's talk about the Triforce's origins. Let's talk about Hyrule's origins. Let's talk about the world's origins. Let's talk about all of that. Demise's origins. I feel like it's a good time to like talk about all the possibilities, all the prospects within that of Breath of the Wild 2. It's just my idea that in order to go forward, we got to go back, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm sure it's gonna be really hype for Zelda enthusiasts and for those that enjoyed Breath of the Wild. Because like, it's really interesting, because I literally just got off Ninty Prime's Nate's podcast, their event, in which it really put into perspective that those that played Breath of the Wild and enjoyed it as their first and maybe only Zelda game at this point in time don't really know about the origins of the Triforce, the origins of the Master Sword, the origins of Link, Zelda, the Curse of Demise, Ganon. They probably don't know Ganondorf is a thing. They boot up Super Smash Bros. I'm like, what's a Ganondorf? I thought it was always Ganon. Who's that? What's that? What's going on? What's the relation? In Breath of the Wild, there's a lot of sprinkling of lores if you look for it, but a lot of times people really appreciate like the world itself and how it's like so free and liberating in this open air adventure, right? So Breath of the Wild really drew in a lot, and I mean a lot, of new Zelda fans. So I feel Breath of the Wild 2 should do a job, good or bad, hopefully good, in educating them on the grand tapestry of the lore of the Legend of Zelda. And you know what else will help with that? Oh God, Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD. Excuse me. Especially since we have voice acting in a Zelda game, you know, the sky is truly the limit when it comes to what they can really convey to us that I will feel is indisputable. Because the glorious thing about the Legend of Zelda series is that there's a lot of lore trickled throughout the games that a lot of people infer in different ways. They presume and assume and they absorb in different ways. You know, a lot of people like that's like the whole debacle with, you know, is Link dead in Majora's Mask? Thanks, Matt Pat. That's just one way of, you know, someone crafting a theory because that's what they got from a game, you know? And I feel like the fact that there isn't really voice acting in Zelda games before that or Breath of the Wild. I mean, there was voice acting in Tetris Trackers, if you want to count that. Helps, you know, I would say push the idea of theory crafting forward. But I want something that's undisputed. I want something that's unanimous. I want something that's, you know, not gonna be like I love theorizing, but I also love cold hard lore. That's like the best, delicious type of tea, right? But in that retrospect, I would really, really like to see the origin of like at least the most important points of the Legend of Zelda. You know, we already got the origin of Hyrule as a country, as a kingdom. You know, we kind of got that idea, and we got the origin of the Master Sword. We got the origin of Ganondorf's curse, Demise's curse. We got the origin of why Zelda's so special, and why she got all these magical and mystical abilities. You know, why is she gifted from the beginning. We already got that. We already got the origin of the spirit of the hero and yada, yada, yada. Breath of the Wild, there's a lot of facets for them to explore in Breath of the Wild. And the thing is that one of the biggest themes in the original Breath of the Wild is that it was such an air of mystery, which is good for like everybody because it was good. It allowed, you know, new fans to easily be drawn in, you know, despite the fact that the gameplay and the world and the graphics were really, really good. It would help draw new fans to the series, kind of like how the first Zelda did all the way back in the day. You know, you did not need to play Twilight Princess before this. You did not need to play Skyward Sword before this because there was just a big, gigantic, and I mean big amount of mystery surrounding that of Breath of the Wild, right? But now the mystery is over. We know what happened 100 years ago. We know what happened 10,000 years ago. We know what is up with the world. We know who's in the world. We know who's alive. We know who's dead. We know all of that. Now, of course, there's new mysteries, obviously, with every Zelda game, and the mystery with Breath of the Wild, too, is like, okay, how far will the game go in terms of beyond that of Hyrule, beyond the sky, and beyond. And, of course, Ganondorf is back. Why is Ganondorf back? How was he, like, what was he doing this whole time, you know, being dead? And, you know, the time between that Breath of the Wild 1 and Breath of the Wild 2, what has Link and Zelda been doing? How much has Hyrule, you know, attempted to recover? Those are mysteries in its own right. But the game of Breath of the Wild 2, well, if we're being a sequel, returning to the same world and everything, there is absolutely no way for this game to have the same air of mystery that the first game did. And when you can't have that, then you need answers, baby. You need identity, baby. You need to tell me what's going on with this game and how my huge amount of Zelda lore and knowledge is going to help me understand what could possibly be going on with this game. And I feel that that's going to be the direction they're going to take because, I mean, like in the first trailer, guess who showed up? Ganondorf. You know, who's Ganondorf? What's a Ganondorf? If you play Zelda, you would know, right? And that's why I implore all those who got into Breath of the Wild, please give all the other Zelda games a shot. You know, if you want to start off with top-down, go for A Link to the Past or A Link Between Worlds. If you want to start off with 3D, start with Ocarina of Time. People will tell you Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Majora's Mask. Nope. You start with Ocarina of Time. And then after that, if you want to go anywhere else, then you can go nuts. You know, if you want to do Wind Waker after that, go ahead. If you want to do Twilight Princess after that, go ahead. If you want to do Skyward Sword after that, be my guest. If you want to do Majora's Mask after that, just know you are in for a ride with that game. And I love it, and I hope you do as well. But with that idea, in a sense, and everything for Breath of the Wild 2, I just hope that we really get an adventure that is going to make us look at Breath of the Wild 1 and be like, man, we played that game and we thought that game was the business. Nah, Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be the business. And I feel like it's going to be something that's going to be blowing every other game before it, ahead of it, out of the water. But I feel like the biggest competition that Breath of the Wild 2 could possibly have in terms of recent releases, recent memory, or anything like that is definitely Elden Ring. And I'm telling y'all right now, like, yes, Soulsborne's game, they're a bit tough. They're unforgiving. The thing is about the game is that it's a game that appreciates your intelligence. It respects your intelligence, right? And it respects your value as a player. And in that aspect, it does not hold back, right? But I'm telling you, if you loved or liked Breath of the Wild, and if a challenge does not scare you, please give Elden Ring a shot. I am literally like 100 hours in, and I don't think I even skimmed the surface yet. I don't think I scratched the surface yet, and I'm 90 hours in. This game is amazing. This game is crazy, man. But with all that being said, Breath of the Wild 2 is like really on my radar, not only as a Zelda fan, not only as a Nintendo fan, but like as a game fan, as a video game fan. It's really on my radar to be like the best, the latest, the greatest like game of all time, because Breath of the Wild literally turned gaming on its head with its approach to open world. And Nintendo refuses to say that word. Nintendo says open air adventure, right? So in that aspect, in that regard, I want to see how Breath of the Wild 2 takes that, identity, that prowess, that title, and push the boundaries even harder, even more when it comes to open air adventure, a grand adventure that turned gaming on its head. And I'm frightened, of course. I'm a little concerned would be a better term, But Breath of the Wild really blew my expectations out of the wall, because like every time there's news of the game, and I've been doing this for years, even before that on my YouTube channel, right? Every time there's news on the game, Wind Waker came out, and I'm like, okay, this is great. Twilight Princess came out, I'm like, all right, this is great. Skyward Sword came out, and I'm like, oh, this is great. But never, like throughout my years of Zelda, never have I looked at a Zelda game. Okay, all right, next Zelda game. I'm always like, all right, next Zelda game. Let's go. Finally, next adventure. I have never sat down with a Zelda game like Breath of the Wild, and I'm like, whoa. Excuse me? Like, Twilight Princess was great. Wind Waker was great. Skyward Sword was great. They were just like all amazing Zelda adventures, right? But Breath of the Wild was something more. That was something truly special. And I'm like, wow. This is it. This is it. Because as much as I loved the previous Zelda games before that, between like to give you guys a little bit of perspective, as much as I loved Zelda games between Breath of the Wild and Ocarina of Time, I don't want to say they played it safe. I don't want to say they were too formulaic, but they were very, I guess the best way to put it is that they were very protective and very aware of their identities, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There definitely isn't anything wrong with that, right? But Breath of the Wild is just like, I'm like, Breath of the Wild, literally, Breath of the Wild for me did what Ocarina of Time did. Breath of the Wild for me did what A Link to the Past did. Breath of the Wild for me did what the first Zelda did. Are you catching my drift? Are you catching my drift? Please tell me you are. Because that is the essence I want to instill into you guys right now. Like, that's the mind's eye of the fifth dimension that I want you to peer into. All right? That's the perspective. So that huge, long-winded, explanation of Breath of the Wild, that's why I want Breath of the Wild to... I want to do that again. But how is a game going to do that again when this game is a sequel? When this game is a direct sequel? The most direct of direct sequels I've seen in the Zelda game since Triforce of the Gods 2, aka A Link Between Worlds, right? How is Breath of the Wild 2 going to do that? And I feel that you have to really bring out the big guns, what a lot of Zelda community members theorize and talk about. Miyamoto, Aonuma, Fujibayashi, big heads within that of the Legend of Zelda development team have already stated and have already confirmed that they love it when fans theorize. And then that's why when people say, oh man, why are you making theories? Why are you making these? What's the point? They like us making theories because, of course, for us, it's fun and it's content. For them, it's money because theories create conversation. Conversation creates buzz. Buzz creates awareness. Awareness creates sales, baby. Right? So, theorizing is a good thing. And I feel if Nintendo truly capitalized, not too hard, but truly capitalized on that of theory crafting and theorizing when it comes to Breath of the Wild and rewarding certain avenues, or at least fleshing out certain avenues in which, I would say made theorizing worth it. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying for Nintendo to look at a theory and it's like, okay, let's make that canon. All right? I'm not saying that because, that will go down the line of pandering. That will go down the line of, being lazy, unimaginative, having other people write the stuff for them. That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that, okay, let's see. That guy was theorizing about the Zonai. Let's explore the Zonai. Let's actually talk about the Zonai. I'm not saying Nintendo has to okay, let's take the Zonai theory and make it canon. No, it's just okay, people are really theorizing about the Zonais. Let's flesh it out, but in our own way. So that it would say, okay, we were theorizing it, and we were theorizing about this. We weren't right. We were theorizing about this, and that, is a good sense of validity that, content creators and theorizers would get, community members would get for, talking about that aspect. I know there's a lot of people in my chat. I know there's a lot of people right here in the fifth dimension that would love to see Midna return. That would love to see the Twilight return, the Twilight Realm return. Aspects of that, Nintendo could explore, facets of that and explore how their lore could be connected to that of Breath of the Wild 2, and the mysterious glowing arm. That looks a lot like Twilight magic to me. Am I right? Especially when it comes to Ganondorf's gravesite, those spires that are pointing towards Ganondorf's dead body, those spires look a lot like, the rock formations in the springs, in the sacred springs in Twilight Princess, where you see Ordania, Farron, Lanayru, and Eldin. Could they possibly need that sacred power of these light spirits to help retain or strengthen that of the lock on Ganondorf's body? Something to think about. It's good to have, our inquiries rewarded in different ways. Because Nintendo always does things where it's they'll introduce a concept in one game, never revisit it again. That's why Breath of the Wild is actually really interesting, and Breath of the Wild 2 possibly will be all that more interesting because, the goddess Hylia, the same exact Hylia statue that we see in Skyward Sword gets referenced a lot in Breath of the Wild, which is good. Finally, something that they've said in the past gets reused in the future. And the whole possibility of fire returning in Breath of the Wild 2, especially since we saw that trailer where the sword is broken and then the sword seems to communicate a little bit with Link. And of course we saw in one of the cutscenes in the original Breath of the Wild, Fi talks to Zelda and that if you beat the Master Trials, then Fi finally speaks again, once again, to Link, right? A different Link, but still all the same. So it'll be really cool to explore those avenues once again, multiple avenues possibly within that of Breath of the Wild 2. Breath of the Wild kind of did it already with Zelda speech. It was like, oh, whether you're adrift in time, it was Skyward Bound, adrift in time, or steeped in the embers of twilight, which I feel is a good, hint towards the child timeline. I am sticking to that. That is my final answer. But I mean, Breath of the Wild could just be like, a dragon break, but I do believe that Breath of the Wild is within the child timeline. Taking that and going to 100 with it would be super nice. Super cool. Super nice. A lot of people think it's enough to have, Hyrule Warriors, give us that type of, Zelda fan service, especially with the original, where you see a bunch of different Zelda characters come together. Although it's not canon, we have Link, Midna, Ruto, Fi, all these different timelines coming together and whatnot. Especially when it comes to the DLC, it's really interesting, but it's not the level of validity that I want to see in Breath. Like, it's not a level of validity that I like. It's not the level of validity I've seen in an actual canon Zelda game. That's what I was trying to say. It's cool for a non-canon game. I want something like that, explored in terms of different regions and facets within that of Breath of the Wild 2, a real canon Zelda game, So with all of those ideas, I feel that it should be finally time for Nintendo to come out with a Nintendo Direct, possibly next week, and have a big Zelda blowout. I feel it's time to truly give us the identity, truly give us a name, give us some more gameplay, and then start, the road to releasing the game in spring. Because it is exactly what happened back in 2016. Oh, excuse me. Back in 2016, Breath of the Wild finally got its name at E3. Gameplay, extended gameplay was showing off, and we got more and more like trailers, information, news from that point on into release in March, which it was spring, right? So with that idea on board, I feel that it's really good for Nintendo to finally give us a name at this E3, not E3, Nintendo Direct possibly happening next week, the week after, sometime this month, anything. Just give us an extended look at gameplay, an extended look at the story, give us a name, and then just start the throttling. Start, all the hype going into the release date of 2023. All right? You've been doing that with Xenoblade, You've been doing that here and there with Splatoon 3. You've been doing that here and there with Mario Strikers Battle League. It's time for Zelda. Like, and it's so funny because Nintendo knows that's the one game that we know about that we want to know more about. That is the top of the list. Nintendo knows it, right? And that's why I'm like, come on, stop with the hanky panky, all right? Unless you announce a new Mario game, unless you actually show off more of Metroid Prime 4, unless you do anything else that would take us off the path of Breath of the Wild 2. Breath of the Wild 2 needs to be the priority, right? And I feel that a lot of people are like, oh, it'll happen when it happen, or like, oh, just be patient. We've been patient for Breath of the Wild 2. We've been more patient for Breath of the Wild 2 than we were for Zelda Wii U. And it's funny because Zelda Wii U got its identity, got its game out and about, and more trailers quicker than what's going on with Breath of the Wild 2. And this game is the sequel, which really makes you wonder, like, okay, one side of the argument is like, yeah, this game is probably being set up to be bigger, better, and wilder than Breath of the Wild, and that's why it's taking longer than Breath of the Wild, the original. And I'm like, okay, I get it. But at the same time, it's like, yo, you're reusing a lot of assets. You're reusing a lot of the world. You're reusing a lot. Like, there has to be something you're not showing us that's gonna make us go, okay, that's why it took you this long. Because for a game to reuse this much of the sequel of its predecessor, it makes you wonder. I'm like, yo, what is under wraps? What is beyond that? Like every other game that I've seen in like the beginning of time, when a game reuses assets or uses like modified versions of said assets, have come out quicker. Kingdom Hearts 1 to 2, Mario Galaxy 1 to 2. Case in point. So when you have that big leap from like Kingdom Hearts 2 to 3, sure, there's a big graphical leap, there's a big identity leap. You can't really use the same facets, you can't really use the same assets as the previous game. But for Breath of the Wild 2, you're using the same model of Link modified, using the same model of Zelda modified, the same world probably modified. You're adding stuff to it. So I just want to know because like everything I've seen from Breath of the Wild 2 so far has not given me the ideas. So I was like, okay, now I understand why this game's taking so long in development, right? Like they added that. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. No, I haven't seen anything like that. Cool. We saw some cool new gameplay footage. We saw that Hyrule Castle is going to be floating up in the air. Ganondorf is back and whatnot. But I want to see, and skydiving, right? But I haven't seen anything just like, okay, this makes sense why you've been keeping it under the veil. And I feel it's time. It's finally time, right? It's just. And don't get me wrong, all right, before you guys get it twisted, I'm not frustrated at the very least. I like talking about the game. I like having conversations about the game. I'm not frustrated at the very least. I'm not saying, Nintendo, do it now or else I will not buy one of your products again. No, I'm not like that. I'm just like, yo. I'm concerned, if anything. I'm just like. So like, it's not like I'm mad or bad or mad or sad or anything like that. I'm just like, but what's the holdup though? Like, I want to know. So with that being said, Breath of the Wild 2 in spring 2023, and that's another thing. Now we are coming closer. We're inching ever so closer to the game. So is Nintendo like, and it makes sense that they would, but is Nintendo that confident in Breath of the Wild and in Zelda in general that they know that they can wait almost to the last minute and be like, hey guys, yeah, Breath of the Wild 2, this is that, bam, grab the game. Because funny enough, they did that with Age of Calamity, and they definitely did that with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Because when you look at a game like Xenoblade Chronicles 3, that is a game that you would think Nintendo would take a year or more than a year promoting, because it's going to be a massive game. Because the Xenoblade games, they're not small games. They're giganto. They're huge, right? But this game was literally announced in February, and it was slated for September, but then they're like, haha, not September, not July, right? So, like, this game has, like, they've been sitting on this game for a while. So why weren't you promoting it? You don't make a game like this, like, overnight. You definitely don't. So why not take your time to promote it? It's Xenoblade Chronicles 3. A lot of people are really interested. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was a hit. People love Toner. People really like the definitive edition, the remake that came out on the Switch. So, like, it's really weird Nintendo doing this whole perspective in terms of, like, promotion when it comes to one game or another. Because Xenoblade Chronicles 3 literally got revealed February and it's now coming out in July, right? And Breath of the Wild 2 got revealed in 2019. And and the truth is, we know jack shit about that game. Like, we really do. I should say we really don't. Like, we know jack shit about that game. So I just want to know what could be Nintendo's reasoning for, keeping it under wraps. Because, like, everyone was expecting a delay, and that's fine. And it's a Zelda game. So it's like okay, a Zelda game getting delayed, what else is new? And that idea is just like, then why did you keep it under wraps the whole time if it was going to be delayed? You know what I mean? Because, like, if you showed us the game more, and you showed us more of the game and give us more of an identity of the game and delayed it, I felt it would have been a lot less stingy to some people. But I know a lot of Zelda fans are like, oh yeah, it's like, a lot of Zelda fans, myself included, say, Breath of the Wild 2 delayed. Oh no. Anyways, because, like, we come to expect that at this point. You know, when people when Nintendo's like, hey, this Zelda game will release when they show off the release date or release window for the first time. This game will release here. We're like, haha, okay, sure, yeah, right, I believe you. We'll be here. We'll be here. So it's so weird how a game got revealed in 2019, got delayed once already, and we know next to nothing about it, right? And that, I feel, that's the big essence for the future of both Nintendo games in 2022 and in 2023, specifically with Breath of the Wild 2, is to give us that identity going into 2023. Because beyond that, Breath of the Wild 2, 2023, we don't know anything about Nintendo. We don't know anything that's going to be releasing Nintendo-wise, right? And that's not a bad thing, because, you know, it's like we're just getting into summer. Like, it is summer, right? So this will be around the time when Nintendo will, like, reveal that stuff. Unless Bayonetta 3 gets delayed into 2023, which I really don't think is happening, because, you know, if you guys haven't noticed on the eShop, Bayonetta 3 is at the top of the eShop for pre-order. Is that like a little hint towards a Nintendo Direct that's happening soon? Possibly. But other than, you know, Breath of the Wild 2, we know nothing about 2023. And I would like to know more about 2023, because, I mean, like, we know about Splatoon 3, Pokemon, Bayonetta 3 possibly, you know, Metroid Prime 4 for 2023, because, like, the thing is, I understand Nintendo rolls to the beat of their own drum. I get that. I do. But a lot of other game companies are really setting up their 2023s, and it's looking really spicy. You know, like I said before early in the stream, Spider-Man 2, Final Fantasy 16, there are the rumors, the possibilities of that, of God of War Ragnarok in 2023. A lot of people say it might come out in November. A lot of people say it could come out in early 2023. Starfield. This is all like big competitive. Okay, the games themselves aren't competitive, but the games releasing around that time is going to be competitive, because a lot of people really think that competition in video games don't exist, and they say like, oh, you know, console wars. You know, console wars are dumb. Yes, I agree. Console wars at this point in time are dumb, because each console, you know, is really, you know, fast tracking to becoming their own identity. They're all trying to do something different. It's not like back in the day with GameCube, PS2, and Xbox, in which they all basically did the same thing, and they're like, oh, you know, get this console, get this console, get this console. It's not that anymore. So when the idea with console wars, it's dumb. However, the idea of video games being released at certain points in time to compete, that's not dumb, because that's how business works. All right, because you guys need to understand, and a lot of people really, really don't understand. It's like, oh man, why would they do that? Well, games aren't competing. Yes, they are, because not everybody has so much money to spend on multiple games at the same time. Not everyone has the amount of disposable income to spread across multiple games within a week, within a month, within multiple months. And people need to understand that, right? When a game releases, when two games releases at the same time, like Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing New Horizons, not everybody has the disposable income to get both games. So they have to make a choice, right? Am I going to get, like, I only got enough for one game. What am I going to get? Doom Eternal or Animal Crossing, you know? So when you have all these games releasing in 2023, people are going to make choices, right? And in order to get people to know, or to get to people leaning towards a choice, you're gonna have to let them know what you have in your pocket. And that's what I'm saying with Nintendo in 2023, and that's what I'm saying with Breath of the Wild 2 in 2023, and that's what I'm saying for a Nintendo Direct that should be happening next week, if not the week afterwards, in order to get the identity going, in order to get the people's possibility of saving, whatnot, or being excited for a game, so they can make their choice with their disposable income. And that is the bottom line of that idea. And of course, you know, everybody and their mamas right now for E3 time is getting ready to do their own things, right? And it's weird, because, like, I've seen more of a turnout for individual companies and shows more so than I've seen, like, recently. We've had the State of Play, and it is obviously all around summertime, right? We've seen the State of Play, Sonic Central, IGN first, IGN Expo, Summer Game Fest, and then Capcom revealed their own thing, and Final Fantasy VII is having their own thing. And we had Devolver Digital and stuff like that. Everybody, literally almost everybody but Nintendo is like capitalizing on the expectations of, E3, but not E3 time. And that's what I'm saying. It's so weird how people really think that, like when they ask the question, why are Nintendo nerds asking for a direct? Why are they begging for a direct? Oh, here it comes. They're begging for a Nintendo direct again, like a Nintendo direct again. And they're saying it like it's somehow unwarranted. But this is literally E3 time. This is literally summertime. This is literally the time where Nintendo always has a direct, right? And other companies has shown that they're willing to do their own thing without E3. So why should it be any different from Nintendo? And why are people saying that, oh, look at this, it's that time again, Nintendo nerds, Nintendo nuts begging for a direct? It's expected. It's not unwarranted. It's something that we have come to know, and it's something that we should have come to expect, and we shouldn't expect any less from a company like Nintendo that brought the noise last year, the year before, and the year before that around this time, because it would really be something like unexpected, out of the ordinary, out of, the realm of possibility if Nintendo were not to have a direct next week or this month at all, right? So with that being said, I really do believe that we are going to get a direct. I really do believe that it could be next week, Tuesday, the 14th, and then possibly Nintendo might announce it tomorrow, Sunday, or Monday, and then that won't, that will not clash with any other, event that's going on right now, because Tuesday is looking the nice prime, and then Nintendo always has on the Tuesday of E3, so like, all happens that hard, and at that direct, I feel it's gonna be Breath of the Wild 2, the main thing, the big thing. And if they were to have a direct, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, possibly that 40 minutes, and if Nintendo really has the cojones, the balls, to actually go out and state, please join us for a Nintendo Direct, focusing on games for the rest of the year, and for an extended look at the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, then it's gonna be game time. And part of me thinks that Nintendo is literally just waiting for everyone to show their hand, or for everyone to announce their thing before they come out, and it's like, all right, it's time. The Nintendo Direct is happening at this point in time, and I feel there's a lot of people within the industry. I mean, people like the higher-ups within Capcom, within Summer's Game Fest. I know, I want to believe, I assume that there is indeed a level of coordination going on, and that they're just like, okay, it's so odd that Square Enix chose Thursday. Why not Tuesday? Nothing's happening on Tuesday, and that'll be the day right after Capcom. Rolling off that hype. Xbox is happening Sunday. Capcom's happening Monday. Square Enix, why didn't you do Thursday? Why didn't you do Tuesday? Why are you doing Thursday? Interesting. So I feel that there is a level of coordination behind the scenes with the higher-ups, and Nintendo Direct could happen on a Tuesday. But I hope you guys enjoyed this explosive, wild episode of The Fifth Dimension. No breaks on this hype train. I hope to see you guys with some good news next week, and of course, the next stream, and of course, the next episode of The Fifth Dimension. But before I toss you to the wind, The Fifth Dimension is not only a podcast, but a Twitch team that I run. So let's go ahead and see who is live streaming from The Fifth Dimension and show them our love. Let us see there's a lot of people streaming right now. Let's go ahead and we're gonna go ahead and raid. Oh, interesting. We're gonna go ahead and raid Mr. Juanup, who is streaming a Resident Evil 4 randomizer. And I know that's something that we're going to look forward to at the Capcom Presents on Monday, that Resident Evil 4 remake. Let's get it. Let's go ahead and raid Mr. Juan up, show him our love, and of course, everyone here in the chat, I'm glad you guys are here, and I'm glad you guys joined the Fifth Dimension. Until the next dive, make sure to always be brave, dive deep, and enter the Fifth Dimension. I'll check you guys next time.